In the period from 1949 till 1990, Germany was split in East and West. Why was there a West and East Germany created? By the end of this video, you will know how and why it came to that split. Coming up. Hi there and welcome to another video of East Germany Investigated, the channel that will dive into the interesting history of East Germany. We will talk about the former country's biggest secrets, we'll unravel myths and share facts with you that you most probably didn't know. Let's get started. May the 8th, 1945 was the day of the unconditional surrender of Germany and therefore the end of the Second World War. 1 month later, the so-called Berlin Declaration was signed by the four Allied representative powers, which were the Soviet Union, the United States, Great Britain and France. This declaration proclaimed the assumption of supreme authority over German territory by these four parties. Also, the occupation zones of the four powers were defined. Another month later, in July 1945, the Potsdam Conference was held. Main participants were Joseph Stalin from the Soviet Union, Harry Truman from the United States, and Winston Churchill and Clement Attlee from the UK. The conference resulted in agreement regarding the so-called 4Ds: demilitarization, denazification, democratization and decentralization of Germany. All parties agreed that the economic unity of Germany should be maintained. Two aspects had been discussed extremely controversially. First, the border to Poland, which was going to be moved westwards to the rivers Oder and Neisse. All Germans living in the now Polish area had to relocate. In real life, the situation was more like an expulsion. Although it was agreed as a provisional border, it was only in 1990 that the official treaty was signed. Second, the war reparations. It was agreed that the reparation claims by the Allies would not only be settled in money, but also in goods and services. Complete factories could be dismantled and industrial goods could be taken from German production. On the other hand, it was also intended to make sure that the German population would still have sufficient means for itself to survive without any external help. War reparations would be taken from each of the Allies' own zone of occupation, except for the Soviet Union. Stalin legitimately claimed war reparations worth $10 billion, as the Soviet Union had paid the highest price for victory and having lost 26 million lives during the war. The Soviet Union was allowed to get also war reparations from the other zones, as most of the German industry was concentrated in the western part of the country. Germany was therefore divided in a western and eastern reparation zone, which was already against the treatment of Germany as one economic entity. And slowly but surely the first cracks between West and East Germany became visible. In July 1946, an attempt by the United States to merge the four German occupation zones failed. Only the UK joined the US in this formation, resulting in the so-called Bi-Zone that came into effect on the 1st of January 1947. The United States wanted to stop the spreading of communism throughout Europe and the rest of the world, and in March 1947, US President Truman declared the containment of Soviet communist influences in Europe the main point of the American security policy. This is known as the Truman Doctrine. A part of this plan was to offer financial aid to get economic and political stability in all European countries where necessary. This economic component was the Marshall Plan, the European Recovery Plan, that passed in 1948 and was named after United States Secretary of State George Marshall. Although the help was also offered to Soviet Germany, Stalin refused and also forbid all other Eastern Bloc countries to participate. The same year, the Soviets came with their own kind of Marshall Plan, called the Molotov Plan, and later Comecon, that stands for Council of Mutual Economic Assistance. A last attempt to negotiate for one Germany was made by the US, but the differences in demands by both the Soviet Union and the United States were too large. However, after these unsuccessful negotiations, France decided to join the US and UK, resulting in a formation of the Tri-Zone, uniting all Western Allied parties. Based on the created atmosphere, no further negotiations between East and West were considered possible. On July 1st, 1948, representatives of the three Western Allied forces signed the Frankfurt Documents, in which they request the ruling parties of the Western zones to found the Federal Republic of Germany. As a first step in that direction, a currency reform had taken place already 11 days earlier. The existing money overhang and inflation had created a situation in which it was not longer possible to build a stable economy. Earlier attempts to introduce a new currency for Germany as a whole had failed, and therefore on June 20th, 1948, the Western Allies introduced the D-Mark into the West German territories under their control. The Soviet zone, including Berlin, followed a few days later with an East German currency. The Western Allies refused to accept the new Eastern currency in the west sectors of Berlin, and as a countermeasure, the Soviets blocked all access to West Berlin. That means all road, rail and waterways. Even electricity was cut off. This is known as the Berlin blockade. The reaction of the Western Allies was not to surrender, as the Soviets had hoped, but they set up the Berlin airlift, die Berliner Luftbrücke, in which they supplied West Berlin with food, fuel and supplies over the next 11 months. This is an amazing historical event and I will definitely make a separate video about it. Should you watch this video at a later point in time, then please check out the video list of this channel. On May the 12th, 1949, the Soviets gave up and ended the blockade. On May 23, 1949, with proclaiming the Basic Law, the Federal Republic of Germany, Bundesrepublik Deutschland, was founded. The Soviets, in their turn, had already prepared the foundation of the East German state, and on October 7, 1949, the German Democratic Republic, die Deutsche Demokratische Republik, was founded, and with that the split of Germany was a fact. Interesting fact is that there were lots of countries that have never recognized East Germany as a state. Of course, the GDR was recognized by the East European countries like Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, Czechoslovakia, and of course the Soviet Union, and also other communist countries were added to that list like North Korea, China and Cuba. East Germany has worked hard over the years to make that list longer and to get internationally accepted. Till the end in 1990, West Germany has never recognized the GDR as a state, stating that there was no such thing as a West or an East German nationality, only a German nationality. Based on this position, there was no West German embassy in East Germany. Instead, there was a permanent representation, Ständige Vertretung, in East Berlin. Also, the West German publisher Axel Springer mentioned the GDR always in quotation marks. I need to make one final important note here, and that is, although it may sound that the Soviets are the bad guys here, wanting to conquer free Europe with their communism, an alternate view is that the Soviet Union had suffered great loss during the war and just wanted to be compensated for it so that they could reconstruct their own country. Also, an expansion of the Soviet territory to the west would create a kind of buffer zone, avoiding attacks like the one by Germany in 1941. Alright guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video and found some value from it. If you happen to visit Berlin, then you may want to visit the Cecilienhof Palace, where the Potsdam conference was held. I will leave the link below. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to be sure that you won't miss out on any of my new videos. Thanks for watching.